Dr. Louw, welcome to the Holiness Today podcast. This is your second time appearing, if I remember correctly, because you were with Jim Ritchie. He interviewed
That's
you
correct.
shortly after the Eurasia election.
Yep.
But I didn't get you when you were Asia Pacific, so you've been a regional director twice now. You were ordained in Sacramento. Did I see that right? Were you up in California as a youth pastor?
Yeah.
Did some military service in South Africa. You're kind of like international mystery man kind of thing. Like I was looking at your profile and I was like, he could be an ambassador for the UN or something. I mean, you've been all over, but where are you at right now? Well, you're in Switzerland. Well, you're close. You're in the international hub. I mean, you know, are you working for the CIA? No, I'm kidding. I'll delete all that.
Yeah, I'm actually living in a very, very interesting location. The regional headquarters is located in Büsingen, Germany. However, it is an enclave, so it is totally surrounded by Switzerland. So it's a very interesting phenomenon because to go shopping anywhere, you have to actually drive through Switzerland to get back into Germany. So that's like a 900-meter long period, a piece of land that you have to traverse.
To go through. Yeah,
exactly. So, and I mean, it's considered to be part of the Swiss customs zone. So the interesting thing is if we buy things in Germany and we come back into Büsingen, that we can actually stop at the customs office at the border and request a tax reimbursement. So it's a very, very interesting location. Yeah. One of the funny things is on the town hall building, there is this really cool painting. It's of a little guy holding a German flag, and in his back pocket is this big old Swiss flag that's dangling out there. It's like, we are German, but we're also Swiss.
We're also Swiss. So it being pretty internationally set up. I mean, that was intentional, right? If I remember, I don't remember if it was Merritt Nielsen or someone who was telling me, because I think Merritt's dad worked with the first Eurasia College. It was intentional to do it that way. Do you know the history of that? I can't remember.
Well, to my knowledge, there was a desire to establish a Bible college in Europe, for Europe, but in Germany. And as they were traveling around, I believe it was Dr. Richard Zanner and maybe even Dr. Carlos Sundberg's dad at the time was maybe the global missions director. I'm not sure about all that. But anyway, they were traveling through and somehow they happened to be driving through this town, which is both in Germany and Switzerland, which really is quite an interesting thing. And they decided to establish Eurasia Nazarene College right here. So it's actually European Nazarene College. And it was birthed here. A lot of property was acquired and the regional office was moved here. And then over the period of time, as education started changing and the thought of bringing all students to one location where English was the medium of education, so it was kind of exclusive. It became too limiting to the growing student needs of the region. So we moved to a decentralized model. And the result was that the whole plant, the educational component was liquidated. And we retained 3 properties here in Büsingen, the one being this regional office building. And then we have what we call the Regional Communications Center. And actually 4 properties, I'm sorry. And then 2 residences. The one is, we call it the Pink Palace. It is a 3-story building. We have 3 missionary units from the regional office living there. And then another unit practically across the street from this regional office where we have a family living. So that's all that's left. 4 properties after everything else was liquidated and the proceeds of that utilized for extension centers education.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at it on the map. Are you guys basically right? Is Büsingen right on the Rhine River right there? Is that where it's at? Am I looking at that?
Yeah, it's incredible. Right, literally, we can walk out of our door. It's about, as the crow flies, 200 meters, and we are by the Rhine River. So I had heard so much about this place, about how beautiful it is, how restful. And I thought, it can't be all of that until we actually moved here. And it really is all of that. Just very peaceful, very quiet place. And a good place, I believe, for a regional office where after lots of travels and activity and stuff, you can come back, you can focus, you can be refocused, basically. And and we have a good team here in Busingen, so it's wonderful.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, Crystal Gibbons helps us out on the podcast quite a bit. She's right there too, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
she's right
yes, she is.
Yeah, and her husband Chad.
Renting an office in the upstairs.
Yeah. That's
Not
good.
really renting, but
really close. Yeah. That's funny. So yeah, I obviously we can start anywhere, but I'm just kind of interested. My initial interest is just thinking about your background. So I guess I can ask it for contextual. In South Africa in '85, was it a mandatory conscription, or did you join up in the military? How did that all work?
Well, growing up in South Africa during that era of apartheid, it was required that all white males had to do conscription military service for 2 years. So I graduated from high school in 1979. I had two options. I could go to university, or I could be conscripted into the military. Not that going to university didn't exempt you. You still had to go after your university studies. So not quite sure what I wanted to become following high school. I decided, well, instead of doing the conscription, I would just sign up as what we call permanent force. So I became a career soldier in the South African military. And kind of the government had said if you serve 5 years continuously, that you would then be exempted from the required, what would be like National Guard or reservist service in the US context. So I thought, I'll give it a shot. I'll go that way. You know, maybe at that time, I'll be able to figure out what I want to do with my life, maybe learn a skill in the military. Anyway, long story short, I eventually got, I went through the basic training and then infantry school where I graduated as a non-commissioned officer. And then about 2 years later, after my first deployment, I had an opportunity to apply for officer candidate school, and I got approved, and I then became commissioned after a process and some further studies. And anyway, so yeah, I became an officer, and I continued. I didn't feel released. I didn't feel tempted by any other occupation until we finally left after 11 years of service. And the reason we left was because God had placed a very clear call on my life at like a couple of years prior to me finally leaving. So yeah, so that's my military story. 11 years as an officer in the South African Infantry Corps.
And we'll be right back.
I believe that God is still calling people, and people are still saying yes. He's calling young people, women and men. He's calling people who are a little bit older. He's calling families. He's calling his whole church, and he's calling us to missions. If you're a young person and you sense that God is calling you, maybe tugging your heart with a sense of call in your life, don't ignore it. Pray about it, talk to your pastor about it, and then come and speak to us in Global Missions. Go to the website, nazarene.org/the-cause. And there you will see some things that will give you excitement and opportunity to be part of the cause of the King and the cause of the kingdom. I hope you do.
Now, back to the rest of the episode. Did you operate mainly in South Africa, or did you I'm trying to remember what was going on. Was it Zambia, or what was going on at the time?
Yeah, so at that time, the South Africa NAM was Namibia.
Namibia, so, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. So we did a lot of deployments into that area to safeguard the border from incursions. And part of the incursions, you know, just politically, that part of the world had been very segregated. And so a lot of liberation struggles, armed movements, and things like that. So, yeah, so we were deployed to maintain the status quo in the nations of what was then called Southwest Africa, and then South Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. So after your military service, did you get a call while you were in military service? How did that work? How did the Lord work in your heart at that point in time? Because you weren't in chaplaincy, were you at that point in time? You weren't a chaplain or anything like that?
Nope, not at all. No, I was an infantry company commander. And when I married Linda, my wife, in 1985, she came and, obviously moved to South Africa, and devout Nazarene. I often tell Linda, you are my salvation, or at least the conduit through which God worked to bring me back to faith. And so here we have Nancy Nazarene married to Major Mark in the army, doing his thing, pursuing a career, ambitious and all that kind of stuff. And she kept on seeking out churches. There was no Nazarene church in the city that our battalion was located in. So she sought out churches. She finally found an Assemblies of God. And I'd been raised in a Pentecostal kind of background. And anyway, I drifted away from my faith. And she was gay. And Linda would always say, it's Sunday morning, want to go to church. Are you coming with me? And really, do you have to go? It's the one day we have off. We can lay in bed here and read and just relax a little. She said, no, I go to church on Sundays and you can come or not. Obviously, still relatively newly married. It's sure I'll go with. Anyway, after one of my deployments to Namibia, I came back and she was attending the Assemblies of God church. And she'd go to church every Sunday and I'd say, okay, I'll come along. And one Sunday, the Holy Spirit, through the sermon, just convicted me and reminded me of a call that God had placed on my life about the age of 16 at a youth camp at this Pentecostal church that we were part of. And I said no. And partially I said no because I had an aunt who was married to, they were missionaries in South Africa. And I knew other people that had been missionaries and pastors, and it's like, I don't want to do that. So I ran away from that call, totally abandoned it. And then this call was so real, this recommitment, rededication to my life was so real that from that point forward, I started looking at options. What next? That church, the pastor was really so, so engaged in my walk, in my journey. I was given opportunity as a soldier to teach the youth, to be involved in the youth ministry. They had a satellite church that they were starting. I was sent to go preach out there. And, I'd never preached, never been to a preaching class in my life, but he was really entrusting, empowering, believing that the Holy Spirit was really at work in my life. And so little by little, I became more and more engaged in ministry. And at some point, as South Africa was kind of devolving into what seemed like social violence, more riots and that kind of thing, we started asking ourselves the question, is God calling me into ministry? And if so, I need to prepare for ministry. Do I prepare here in South Africa through the Assemblies of God educational process? Or do we maybe say at this time in our lives, we have two little girls, we are going to go to America and enroll through Nazarene Bible College? We decided that for the, given the uncertainty of the political situation in South Africa, that I'd have to resign regardless. And the fact that I had some theological problems with the Assemblies of God position on having to testify to speaking in tongues, which I'd never done. I couldn't sign that covenant, which was kind of a requirement that they made. So we decided to go to...
Side note, though, you do speak in tongues on how Nazarenes would articulate that, because you are multilingual, if I'm understanding correctly. So
correct.
Many languages. Sorry, I interrupted you, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I do speak in tongues in that way, but not
in that context. With interpreters and whatnot. Yeah. So go ahead.
Amen to that. Yeah. Anyway, so I actually, while in South Africa still, I applied for NBC and got approved. And then we moved. We moved back to California, where Linda is from, Fresno, California. Her teaching credential had expired, and if we were going to go to Colorado Springs, she needed to be the breadwinner so that I could go to NBC full time. It was still residential at that time. And we planned on being in Fresno for about a year so she could clear her teaching credential. And anyway, again, the pastor of the local Nazarene church in Fresno, it was Grace Church of the Nazarene, he got me involved, board interviewed me, gave me a local license, I got enrolled in the course of studies, worked with a youth group. And after about 18 months, he said, Betty and I are moving. We've been called to another church in Chico, California. And it's a large church. They have room for staff members. And we'd like you to come with us. So I said, but Jerry, you've been the one pushing NBC on me all the time. Why? So he said, well, the Sacramento district actually has an institute that is an extension of NBC, and you can do your studies through them. So that's what I did. We followed to Chico, California. We were there for just short of 2 years when the DS asked us to pray about taking a local church just down the street. And we did that. Anyway, so that's how we moved from South Africa to US.
Yeah. So was Linda grew up Nazarene then? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, she's like third generation Nazarene, I think.
Yeah. And she was in South Africa doing like missions work, or because you said she was from Fresno originally, or where's she from? Is she from South Africa?
She's from Fresno, California.
Yeah. So was she in South Africa? How did you meet her then? How did that work? How did that connection?
That's really cool. My best friend in high school was a Nazarene missionary kid. So his parents were Philip and Mary Lou Stigliter. They served in Cape Town, South Africa. And Robert went to public school. So he and I were in the same grade. We played sport together. We became best friends. And when we graduated from high school, he was going to Point Loma and I was going into the army. So we made a commitment to each other that when we got married, that we would go to each other's weddings. So, weirdly enough, well, not weirdly enough, back then, no email, none of that stuff. Not even cell phones. We wrote letters. So every now and again, he'd send me a little postcard and I'd write back. And he said, hey, I'm getting married and I'd like you to come to my wedding as we had discussed. So I said, sure. So I planned on that. I got leave from the army, went to California for his wedding. And when he told me the last night of our honeymoon is going to be Nazarene night at Disneyland.
Oh,
I said,
nice.
That sounds cool. He said, we'd like you to come along.
Well, okay.
However,
what year was this?
This was in 1983, I believe it was.
Okay. Because I grew up in the Southwest and we went to Nazarene night at Disneyland when they were still doing it, but I would have been real little, but it wouldn't have been that time. It would have been a little later than that, but sorry, interruption.
Wonderful. Yeah, we've actually been to several Nazarene nights at Disneyland when
it's
we
pretty
were
fun.
In California.
Oh yeah, great. You would have gone down. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So maybe we were there at the same time. I'm trying to think. At some point, our paths might have crossed without realizing it. So
yeah, maybe.
I would have been about 2 years old though, so wouldn't have remembered you.
Might have found you with Mickey Mouse.
Exactly.
Anyway, so to return to the story, so he said, by the way, our last night of the honeymoon is Nazarene night at Disneyland. And we'd like you to come along, but we don't want you to feel left out because, Don and I are newlyweds and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll set you up with a date. Well, the date is Linda, my wife.
That's really cool.
And who happens to be a cousin of Robert's. She was also at Point Loma studying the same time as him. So, yeah, he did tell me this, though. This is fun. He said, now, Mark, remember, Linda is like the prize jewel of the family. You are to be respectful. You are to be a gentleman. You are not to do anything that would cause any pain for me from her mom who would come back. So I said, okay.
Be a
So
gentleman, huh?
I was quite the gentleman.
There you go.
Anyway, we got back from Disneyland that night and said goodbye to each other. We traveled on the bus from Point Loma, which was kind of the staging area. And then we got back and I said, thanks. I'd been a real gentleman. Didn't think I'd see her again. Anyway, I was staying in San Diego with friends of Robert. And he said, and the host said, well, tomorrow is Sunday and we go to church on Sunday and we'd like, to invite you to come along. I said, okay. I wasn't anyway, walking with the Lord at that point in time, but trying to be respectful and appreciative of their hosting. I said, okay, I'll come along with you. And then they said, well, actually, we go to church about 2 hours before because we have this thing called Sunday school. And that we have a Sunday school for college age, young adults, early career kind of people. And we can drop you off at that. I said, okay, I'll go. Anyway, I walked into the class and there she was. Linda was there. And we immediately reconnected. We sat together in church. After church, she said, I have a couple of neighborhood kids that I bring to church on Sunday. They're in the children's ministries area right now, but afterwards I'm going to go pick them up. I take them out for lunch, to the park, that kind of thing. And you can come along if you want. I had no plans. I mean, my plans were just kind of self-destructive in nature. And and she said, you can come along. I said, oh, okay, I'll come along. Came along. We took the kids home about 4 or 5. She says, well, I go to church at night also. And, you want to come along? I said, sure. Anyway, we saw each other every day from that point on until I left, which was about 10 days.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's how we connected. We started writing each other. Story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you met at the most magical place on earth, basically, Disneyland there.
Yeah.
Do you guys go back? Do you guys go back at all? Kind of celebrate that at all? Have you been back to Disney a few times?
We have, but the place where it all really happened was at Knott's Berry Farm.
Ah.
So we were like 5 days into this, let's call it West Coast dating scene where we go to SeaWorld and Magic Mountain.
It's pretty nice down there, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, this day we were at Knott's Berry Farm. And it has like a Western theme there. And there's this one place called the Hitching Post. So we've been hanging out together, laughing and just talking about everything and anything. And we were at this hitching post. And I thought to myself, man, I wouldn't mind being hitched to this girl forever. And didn't say a word to her. Unbeknownst to me, she was feeling the same thing. So without saying a word to each other, because I was just visiting America, I wasn't looking for anything to happen. And she knew I was going to leave. So we didn't use the words, I love you, or, any of that romantic kind of language.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so when I left, I left a little puppy dog, the little stuffed animal on a little heart with a little necklace that said, I love you. And I left her a little note that left my parents' mailing address to which she could write if she wanted to.
Yeah.
I was serving in Namibia at that time. That's where my assignment was. And so I'm back in Namibia. I called my parents faithfully once a week over the weekends. And my dad said to me, we got a letter from some girl in America. You didn't tell us about any girl in America. And he said, what should I do with it? I said, forward it to me to this address. And when I opened it, it was a Valentine's from Linda. And that started the connection back and forth, a letter a week, snail mail. So our thoughts, our letters would cross over the ocean.
Yeah. That's romantic. So, you need to sell this rights to Angel Studios or something. This would be a good movie. Letters from Linda.
Yeah, letters from
good.
Linda. Yeah,
That's good. So did she come travel and visit you then in South Africa? How did that work out? Was she able to come visit? Were you able to visit?
So about 6 months into it, it wasn't even 6 months, just several months of writing back and forth. I knew her birthday was coming up, so I started spinning it this way. I said, I know your birthday's coming up, and they say South Africa, you can see the whole world in South Africa, which is literally the case.
Yeah.
Every kind of topography, geography. So maybe there's someone who wants to gift you as a birthday present a trip to South Africa. She didn't bite that one there. And I said, well, your birthday's coming up, next letter. Maybe, your family can, instead of spending money on other gifts, they could give you a trip. Nada. Finally, I wrote her and said, if I buy you a ticket, would you come to South Africa? And she said, yes.
She was holding out, making sure you were truly committed, huh?
Maybe.
Put up some money there. That's
anyway,
good.
So she came and she met my family. And one night we were visiting Signal Hill, which is one of the most romantic spots in Cape Town. You see the whole city, except it was raining cats and dogs, and the city was just shrouded in a cloud. Couldn't see anything. But anyway, I just felt this is the moment. This is the moment. I got down on my knee in that car because it was raining like crazy, and I asked her to marry me.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, so
she said yes, right? I'm sure she didn't play with you a little bit there, right? She said yes right away.
She did not play with me. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so she said yes. I mean, we had physically been together now maybe 3.5 weeks. That was it.
Wow.
But a lot of
correspondence. Yeah.
A lot of correspondence, a lot of transparency, talking about
that's great.
Life and hopes and faith and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I then went back to America 6 months later, and with the intention of giving her the ring and then meeting her mom and dad and family. And 6 months later, my mom and I and dad went to America, and I got married there in San Diego at First Church of the Nazarene.
Yeah. That's really cool. So then did you, when you moved to the United States, that was how many years? So she came back, and then you had how many more military years of service? Because Linda and you lived in South Africa a little bit longer as newlyweds. Is that right?
Yeah.
Newly married?
We were there for about 5.5 years, 6 years.
Okay. Yeah. And then so you go to Sacramento. So you go to Fresno, then Sacramento, and then you served as a local church pastor for a little bit because you were a youth pastor and then a local church. Okay.
Yeah. We served a local church for about 5 years. And then in 1997, I was a delegate to the global NYI convention. And because Linda's aunt and uncle, my best friend, her aunt and uncle, they were retiring as missionaries. And so we attended the global missions service, the closing service. Dr. Nina Gunter preached that powerful message about picking up the cross. So they had all retiring missionaries go down to the front and lay down these crosses, and the crosses were there. And at the conclusion, she asked, who will pick up the cross? Well, without looking at each other, Linda and I both just jumped up and we went and took a cross. And we feel like at that point, God started transitioning our hearts, our minds towards global missions service as the real call that he placed upon our lives. So we did that. We wrote, we didn't write, actually. I think there was a form that you could fill out. So they had your contact info. They sent us this massive package of green application forms to fill out. It was a folder about this thick.
Oh, man.
I actually think I still have it, just as kind of memorabilia.
Yeah.
And Anyway, we sat on that for a long, long time. And then in 1999, while pastoring the church, we'd been there about 5 years at that point. I was going through a difficult period personally, spiritually. The church was doing well, but I wasn't happy. It's small town, small church, seeing good growth, but all of the frustrations and struggles that often come with a ministry like that. I was a miserable husband. So Linda told me, you need to go away. You need to go and find God and, come to grips with your calling, which is to pastor this church. So I went to a YWAM retreat center just little north of Chico, California. And while there, I wrestled and wrestled with God, and he asked me 3 questions that I will never forget. He asked me, "Do you love me?" And I said, "Yes, Lord, I love you. You know I love you. I've given up my career, my country. I gave everything up to come here to America to be obedient to your call." He said, "Will you serve me?" Of course I'll serve you. I'm pastoring this stinking little town church here.
Yep.
And then the 3rd question just floored me. He said, "Will you stay here if I ask you to?" I didn't want that question.
Yeah.
I couldn't say yes to that question. Anyway, for the next couple of days, I really just wrestled and anguished. And finally, I relented and said, "Lord, I will stay here. I'll stay in this town if that is what you want of me." Unbeknownst to me, my wonderful wife is walking up and down the dead end, the cul-de-sac in front of our house and praying, "Lord, be with Mark, speak to Mark, help him see the light to stay here. We just have had a new little baby. We've just bought a house. Oh, I have a job at the school. We bought a minivan. This is a great place to raise a family, etc., etc." She was walking, praying, and then as she walked to the house to unlock the door, she heard the phone ringing. Now, back then, you had an answering machine. We hated answering machines, so we didn't want the answering machine to get. She opened the door, she rushed in and picked up the phone, and the voice on the other end said, "This is Gary Hartke from the Global Missions Office of the Church of the Nazarene. We are going through all folders and files, and we found your name.
Wow.
And wanted to know if you are still interested in global missions candidacy. If so, we have an assessment coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Are you interested?" Well, I was oblivious to all of this. No cell phones, remember? So I come down the mountain finally telling her, okay, I said yes to God. We're going to stay in this place. Yeah. And he says, "You know what? God has spoken to me too."
That's funny.
And so, so we went through the assessment and we were commissioned as missionaries.
Yeah. I have found in my own spiritual walk that's how God's just waiting for me to give it up. He usually gives it right back, but it's very Abrahamic for me too. So you were coming down from the mountain. Yeah. You still had Isaac with you, kind of thing. But it's how it works. So where did you go for? So I didn't stalk you enough, but where was your first mission assignment? Was it in the Asia Pacific area? I can't remember where it was at.
No, when this is interesting because while pastoring, I actually wrote to Dr. Richard Zanner, who was the regional director in Africa. This even before we'd entered the process of becoming missionaries. And I said, "Hey, I'm pastoring here. I'm a South African. I've lived in Namibia for 5 years, been with multi-cultures. I know the context. I'm willing to come back to Africa and serve in that kind of environment." Anyway, he wrote back and said, "Well, you need to, complete your studies and be ordained, and there's a process and a blah, blah, blah." So finally, when God did then speak through the official Nazarene system, and we said yes, we were interviewed by Dr. Zanner, and he asked us about going to West Africa. So our
Ah.
first assignment was actually to Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire
Ah,
in, in 2000. So we began there just after Y2K. Do you remember Y2K?
yes, yeah. It was a
Oh my
big
goodness.
hoopla.
A big hoopla. Couldn't buy a generator, a tent, emergencies that applies. The
No.
world was going to come to an end. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Even wells,
Anyway.
hand pump wells were probably hard to find too because everyone was buying those up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was so weird because we were meant to be flying on like the first, I think, to Cote d'Ivoire.
So you didn't know if you were going to make it.
Because the aeroplanes were going to fall out the sky. Do you remember
Right.
that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, anyway. So we finally left, I can't remember, the 3rd or 5th or something like that, flew into Abidjan and began our ministry there. The first year learning French and just the culture. And so we were in the Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire for 5 years. Following that, we went to Senegal for 7 years. And then we transitioned to Africa, to South Africa we were there for 10 months. And then I got a call and was interviewed over the phone for the regional director position in Asia Pacific. And the rest is history. 2012, we moved to Singapore, served there for 12 years.
And then your current role in Eurasia.
Yeah.
When
so
was that?
years,
Was that 2022? No, 2023. When did you take the Eurasia position? Was it 24?
I think
Trying to remember.
24.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
quite a journey.
right. So I should have asked this when I interrupted you earlier, but so you grew up speaking. So you speak Afrikaans.
Yes.
You speak English, and then you had to learn French.
English and Afrikaans is what I grew up with, bilingual.
Yeah.
And then we learned French in the Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
And so I would say I am fluent in the language, understanding, reading, speaking it. I am rusty, however, because, 12 years in Asia Pacific, no French, so I didn't use it, but I'm still proficient in that. And strangely enough, the Latin-based languages, I understand. It is like I have a gift of
Grammatical
interpretation. Yeah.
You can speak in tongues.
I can speak in tongues. Yeah. So I can follow conversations, basic conversations, especially if I know what the subject matter is. And then because of Afrikaans, I have no problems communicating in the Netherlands and Belgium where it's Afrikaans is kitchen Dutch or baby Dutch as friends refer to it. And living here in Germany now, I haven't officially taken any German classes, but because of Afrikaans being
Similar.
a Germanic-based language, there are similarities, and I'm slowly picking it up. It's fun. I enjoy the puzzles of trying to figure out what's actually being said.
So, and the other, I mean, you being over Asia Pacific for a period of time and Eurasia, I mean, that's like, I don't know, what, 2/3 of the world's population that you've covered, or, crazy land mass areas. Where's the dividing line? I don't want to say any creative access areas, but how far does Eurasia go east?
So Eurasia goes all the way up to the border with Myanmar.
Okay.
So it's India that butts up to Myanmar.
Yeah.
And then China, Nepal is in Nepal. China is in Asia Pacific.
Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then everything else is Eurasia. So the field there are two fields that touch on Asia Pacific. They are the Eurasian North Field, and that is Russia. That goes all the way to the ocean over there, basically close to Japan. And then and also just above Mongolia, which is part of Asia Pacific. And then we have India that butts up against Myanmar, as I said. So that's kind of the demarcation. The field, the the South Asia field consists of Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and a creative access country. That so they're in that vicinity, and there are large populations in those nations.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you came into Asia Pacific as regional director, did you feel like you had a vision for the region, and then did you feel like you left well? If you left poorly, you don't have to say it on the podcast. I'm kidding. No, but did you feel like you came in and God kind of called you and you got a certain? Did you feel like what you were looking at got done in the time that you were there?
Yeah. No, I feel very, very good about what was accomplished over the 12 years. In both of these assignments, Asia Pacific and Eurasia, I have followed the newly elected Global Missions Director. So in Asia Pacific, I followed Bern Ward, and then Eurasia, I followed Jim Ritchie.
Yeah.
So what was a real blessing is both of them said, we have no expectations of you trying to step into my shoes or replicating or continuing anything we had done. You are unique. And this is something that I really appreciate about both of them and other leaders in this manner. And I try and be that myself, where you are unique. God has called you uniquely to this place for this time. Be yourself, be true to who you are and to what the Spirit is telling you. So when I arrived in Asia Pacific, I really had no idea what to expect. I had no dreams, no ambitions, no aspirations of ever going to Asia Pacific. It was all foreign. I'm an African. I view myself as that way. That happened to have a residence in America, in California. So when that came, it was a massive learning curve because Asia, heaven's sakes, it's a massive piece of land, as you said, from the North Pole to the South Pole, basically from where the date line begins all the way up to the India border. Just massive cultures, religions, political systems, everything so foreign. So it took a while to come to grips with that. And I would say that I am a strategist. I love strategy. I love planning and that. But I've also learned in the military, hurry up and wait. You're anxious to get there and do it. But when you get there, you also realize that sometimes you just have to wait.
Right.
So I think that really helped me to learn more about the region, the history of the region, the fields within the region. And so by the time I left after 12 years, I feel like I'd been able to articulate a vision statement, a mission statement, and that the region was on a very, very healthy trajectory of growth. And I'm blessed to say that Kafoa Muror, who followed me, is continuing the work, the foundation that I laid. As Paul reminds us, it's not us really. One works the soil, one sows, one weeds, one harvests. So we're all just there for a different season. And I'm excited about that. Then coming to Eurasia, again, so different. So diverse. If you think of the South Asian context, the Indian context, then the Western European context, the Middle Eastern context, wars and conflict. Again, I made a commitment to the leadership that I would look, learn, and listen for the first couple of years to try and come to grips with the realities of this region before I imposed anything or proposed anything, for lack of a better term. So that's where we are. I'm about 2 years into this now. Yeah, actually, June 1st was 2 years.
2 years. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
And I feel like, ready to give clearer direction now.
Well, and you stepped into that role, and I mean, so being in Africa, I've talked to other missionaries and friends from Africa. Often gets overlooked in really any news, but Africa is constantly at war. It seems like there's always civil wars and fighting and migrant issues. but you and also your military experience, you come into Eurasia and there's three major world crises brewing.
Yeah.
Ukraine and Russia, you got Israel, Lebanon, Iran, America, Iran, and then you got Azerbaijan and Armenia. I think that's settled down a little bit, but maybe a big question for you, but how did God kind of take your experience into, I could imagine all that you've been through, just and again, I'm not even talking about your military experience directly. Obviously, that affects it, but just the continent of Africa is constantly dealing with a lot of issues related to war and whatnot. But it's a big question for you. But how is God speaking to you in this time?
Well, I think what I've learned through these years in global missions and kind of tapping into my military experience is that security, personal security is very, very important. So my primary concern in the Eurasia region is for the well-being and safety of the missionary team, firstly, because they are expats serving in foreign contexts. And then also for the well-being of the national church, that they not feel abandoned or, discriminated against, because we have churches in Russia, we have churches in the Ukraine. So, we need the Lord's favor on both groups.
Right.
So it's been able to discern what is needed, how to be in contact, dealing with the realities and the constraints that come with that. It's a massive ongoing learning process, because there's no manual written on this, right?
Right.
You just have to try and fail.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. So I think persistence. In fact, my wife and I, we jokingly tease each other. She says, "You are persistent." I say, "You are stubborn." So between stubborn and persistent, I think we'll find the ways through this. But the safety and the mental and emotional well-being of individuals is a very, very real thing. I'd say the same thing in Africa. When we were serving in Cote d'Ivoire, we were evacuated 3 times from that. And because of the 3 just ripped out of the environment kind of evacuations, knowing the mental trauma that we went through, the children, all that kind of thing, I really believe in Asia Pacific, I initiated the member care concept, where people need to be cared for holistically. And from that, we continue now globally to ensure that member care covers the holistic aspect of the human. So mental, emotional, physical. And so that's a primary concern. I know that, even my generation of white men in South Africa, about my age, many of us suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because of the conflicts that we were involved in, that we were not allowed to talk about. At that time, there was no debriefing, that kind of stuff. But you see it manifesting itself in different ways in different people. So just trying to avoid that and ensure that our missionaries, our local people are taken care of is a critical concern. Yeah.
Now, you personal question for you. You can answer it as deeply as you like, but you can also say, Nate, next question. But how did you deal with that? How did you seem very joyful, very happy, obviously the joy of the Lord and all that. But how did you process through that? And I'll be confessional myself. I have a hard time sometimes reading the news and not getting cynical. So how do you, in the context that you're in, not keep the hope? Obviously, our hope is in the Lord, but maybe anecdotally, if you could share, some things the Lord has taught you through all that.
Yeah. Well, I often kind of fall back on this statement. It's the call that keeps you. And it doesn't mean that things are always going well, or that you're happy, or even joyful. It's just the reality that God has called you there to that place for that time. And that he hasn't released you. My mentor pastor, the one that invited us to be co-pastors in Chico, California, and really was so formative in my early ministerial career, he made this statement. He said, Mark, never doubt in the dark what God revealed to you in the light. And that thought has stuck with me, which is,
good.
If God has called you and you have clarity, it's in the light. You have no doubt about his call. Then when things are going rough, when there is war, civil war, unrest, home invasions, every kind of bad thing that you could imagine is happening to you or people you love or in the nations around you, don't doubt in those moments of darkness that your call has been taken from you. Trust God, and he will make it clear. So we have persevered. Personally, it's been tough, but yeah, knowing that God has called us, he will call us faithful, and he will do it. He'll sustain you. He has sustained us, and he has not robbed the joy of our salvation or the joy of service. And so I think that is kind of what is in me. And then having, served in the military for 11 years, just knowing what conflict really is like. And I think all of that has helped form me into the person that I am today. And, the words that I would share with individuals would basically revolve around what I just said. If God has called you, he's faithful, and he will make it clear to you if you need to move. Additionally, we put no pressure on our personnel, our missionaries, our national leaders. If you feel your life is in danger, you can jump on an airplane or get on the boat or whatever and get out of there, because safety is primary.
Yeah, that's good. And ecclesiologically, I've been praying and thinking through. I want to make sure I'm not too not thinking about the world, but just the notion that the church is a safe space, and that ultimately our pastors are called to the sheep in that safe space. Obviously, we invite people in, but there's a responsibility. I like how you put that to those underneath you to make sure they're safe. It's not to say that we won't, but I think sometimes the cynicism that I run into is that we just want to make everything better. We want to say, oh, the church is just going to fix all of these political problems. We can stop all the wars. It's not going to happen. But the church is called to take care of the flock. And so, I think that's a good reminder for us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would say one of the key things for pastors in, let's call them cynical environment context, is to help our people to be focused correctly.
Yeah.
That you are not focused on the negative social media or the silly things that are being said by politicians, etc. Your hope isn't built on that. Your hope is built on Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And your relationship with him. So don't be distracted by those things. Don't get sucked into them, embroiled by them, discouraged by them. Remember your focus. Your focus is on Christ. Yes. And then as leaders, I feel it's important that we be sure that our people are not experiencing a frog in the kettle kind of concept where it's getting hot around them, the civil war, the unrest, the danger, and it's like, oh, it's all right. At some point, as a leader, I might have to intervene and say, no, it's not all right anymore. You got to get out of there now. So it's that working together as a church.
I was trying to remember a quote. I think it's applicable, but you probably get the theologian. He's French, so you might be able to get this one. But I was trying to remember this quote. I couldn't remember the theologian. Jesus foretold the kingdom, and it was the church that came. But it's Alfred Loisy, a French Catholic priest. I knew I had heard that before, but I think sometimes we think we're going to build this kingdom, and obviously that is Jesus's kingdom. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek phrase. You can strain on either end of that, but God is building his church and it is his kingdom. But, I think sometimes we can be like Judas, where we think, Jesus came, we're going to get this. It's going to be all good.
Yeah.
And it is, it's a mustard seed, but
Yeah.
it's a good reminder.
Well, but I think when we reflect on that quote that you just gave, and along came the church, I think he's referring to the institution, right? The institutionalized church doesn't always represent the kingdom well. If we think of church historically, not talking about our denomination, talking about the church historically, there have been inquisitions and persecutions, all that kind of thing. But the church is the people. The church is, I love the saying, a movement of God through the people of God. So if we can remember that the church, the institution, is simply a vehicle through which resources is facilitated, communication, coordination of activity, etc., is facilitated, then we will do what we have been called to do, which is to make Christ-like disciples in the nations. And making a Christ-like disciple is about teaching them the teachings of Jesus. Teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. So.
Yeah. That's good. Well, I've been challenged too. I've been reading a lot of Arminius and constantly talking about his ecclesiology is in Christ, in Christ, in Christ. Just that reminder that we're a part of the body of Christ. And, Christ's heel will be bruised. The church is going to be bruised, crushing serpents. But, we're in Christ and there's power in that. But scary is it being out of Christ, thinking we are in Christ. That's a scary place to be. But sure. Hey, I want to transition to a couple fun questions before I keep you too long. But this is one that I've adapted. I stole it from, I think it was Gemini. So this is an AI sourced question, but it's been a fun one for me. So in all of your world travels, you have to assemble a meal and you have to pick 5 items of your favorite items. What 5? And it doesn't have to make any sense. So you could have tacos from Mexico and sushi from Japan, as one of our guests said it. But what do you pick?
So thinking individual items, right?
Yeah. You can make it make sense though. If that's too chaotic for you, you can make sense of it.
I love food. Let me one of the joys of this assignment is that I've been exposed to so many different cuisines. I love, as a default, I could eat Mexican food every day. I could eat pizza every day. I could eat Indian food every other day. I could eat sushi. I love them all. But if I was to put together a meal with 5 ingredients, it would be South African boerewors, South African sausage, the best in the world. I would add to that, in typical South African fashion, a good tender fillet steak, steak, as we call it. Then I would put in that plate my mom's roasted potatoes. Just amazing, amazing potatoes. I would probably add to that mixture my wife's green beans that she makes, which is just incredible with bacon and onions and stuff in it. And the 5th item would also be on that plate, but I'm not going to share that because I would like a dessert to go along with that. and again, here I'm thinking of a South African favorite, which would be a milk tart that they make.
Oh, yeah.
So again, as you can see, my palate is still strongly leaning South African.
Well, what is that called? Is it a braai? Am I saying that right? Braai or
it's a braai.
Yeah. And is that more like that's a grill, right? That's not a long slow cook like a smoke. That's not like a barbecue of the American South. It's a like an asada kind of thing of South America kind of grill cook. You throw the steak on, throw the sausage on.
I mean, a real braai, if you're going to braai, you need wood. You need to burn wood, have coals from the wood, and then barbecue over I'm using the American term, braaiing over that. So that is a traditional South African braai. Generally, there are chops a braai is all about the meat, right? It's not about the accompaniments. It's about the meat. So there'd be chopped steak, wors, or the sausage. And then there might be what we call braaibroodjies, which is like toasted sandwiches that has tomato, tomato, onions, and cheese on it. That's also toasted on over the coals. So yeah,
it's getting close to my lunch hour. This is making me hungry talking this food here.
I tell you.
And then I was talking to a pastor in Cape Town, and he said on Fridays you don't cook, you go out and you get food trucks, or you walk around and get food. Is that a tradition in Cape Town? You know, you go out to eat on your Friday.
If it is, it's happened since I've left.
Okay.
I have no idea about that, but yeah, Cape Town's become quite a foodie capital. So
okay, yeah, so that must be a good cultural thing, a newer cultural thing. And then I have to ask this question too, because I'm a caffeine junkie, so I need to probably give that up. But how do you caffeinate yourself, and how do you do it? Are you a tea drinker, coffee drinker, soda? What do you drink? You're drinking? Coffee.
With coffee.
That's right. Yeah. How do you take it? Coffee and cream, coffee, sugar.
Yes,
sugar,
like a baby. White and sweet.
Yeah. Get that sugar and cream in there. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I am pretty particular about my coffee. I like it strong, but I do like it sugared and creamed up a little.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had many different kinds of coffees, and probably my favorite comes from Papua New Guinea, Blue Mountain coffee from there. Yeah. I also love Ethiopian coffee, Colombian.
Yeah.
I was in Guatemala recently, had some excellent coffee there. So there are a lot of good beans out there.
Yeah, there really is. There is.
It has to do about the roasting, how they've been roasted, I think.
I agree. Do you like it lighter? You like a darker or a lighter roast?
I like a darker roast.
Darker roast.
So there's more body to it.
Yeah.
That's
good. So I try and ask this question in variety of different answers, because we're trying at the end of the year, we're going to do an issue on Sabbath rest. But I kind of just like to know how my guests, how do you rest? How do you get your downtime? What's your R&R?
Because I'm quite a compartmentalized person. When I leave this office today and I say I'm done, then I'm done. So that's where rest begins, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to go home. I'm going to have dinner. We're going to go for a walk. Then we're going to watch World Cup soccer.
Yeah.
That will be played. So
Morocco, France tonight. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's total disconnect.
Yeah.
Because I travel such a lot and I am a bit of a workaholic. I try and take a Friday off as my Sabbath, a break from everything. Where I cannot, because there's an emergency meeting that needs to be had, or it's been calendared that way, then I will take the meeting and be more reflective on Fridays. It's kind of my reflection day. Our down day is Saturday. Saturday is my Sabbath. We either lay around the house and read, or maybe barbecue, because we have a gas barbecue.
Yeah.
So I can't braai.
Yeah. You can't braai. You don't have the wood chips. Huh?
Maybe have people come over. That's how we relax and Sabbath. Sunday is obviously church, maybe some social activities and things afterwards. So I don't consider Sunday to be the Sabbath. I like to keep the Saturday.
I agree.
Clean.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. And I try and not think about. It's hard. It's hard to not think about what's happening, especially when it's conflict and issues. So, yeah.
Do you like to read fiction or nonfiction? When you read?
I am a fiction reader.
Yeah.
Probably I read every Dan Brown novel that there is.
Oh yeah, those are fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a Wilbur Smith. I don't know if Wilbur Smith means anything to you, but he was a very popular author in South Africa. His books are available in the UK, so like Commonwealth kind of nations. A lot of African history in them. And then someone that I've discovered just a couple of years ago that I really enjoy is Ilgitson, and he writes basically Grecian, Roman era. It's about the emperors and all that
interesting.
kind of thing. So yeah.
What's his name? Say his name again. I want to look him up.
Con Eagleson.
Con Eagleson. So kind of like historical fiction with him a little bit, kind of giving the stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. It's a good way to learn.
Really,
I like
really,
finding those kind of books.
Yeah, Con Eagleton. So he is a fabulous writer. He does a lot of research, and it's just very engaging.
Yeah, I'll have to look him up. Well, that's great. And Dr. Louw, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we pre-talked about this, so I don't feel it's putting me on the spot. But we're hoping to do more of these kind of episodes. We're going to try and do some collaboration episodes, if my understanding is correctly. So, as our audience is listening, we're going to try and get some interviews and syndicated across the Everyday Eurasia podcast, I think, if I understood that correctly. So plug for
awesome.
For your podcast. And you get on that pretty regularly, right? I listened to a couple of your episodes this morning. You kind of do some regional director updates for the Everyday Eurasia podcast.
Well, I've actually only done, I did the very first podcast, which was an introduction to the Everyday Eurasia podcast. And then I did the series of 5, which was basically just touching on a half-year overview of, what I've observed around the region. And I don't know if you caught it, but the theme of every day was God is already there, right? Because God is already there in each of those fields that I covered. And so it was fun. I enjoyed that. But I think in a conversation that we had, an informal offline kind of conversation, I mentioned that my favorite form of podcast is this back and forth bantering.
Yeah. Me too. Me too.
Where we actually have fun. We can laugh and tease each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I'm hoping we can do that regularly. I'm excited for it, but you'll have to find some good people you want to highlight. But I love people we can grill. Dr. Reeder and I, when we were doing it, we would jab at them a little bit. We never actually sent them any pre-scripting or anything like that, so it was all off the cuff. So it was very conversation with Dr. Reeder. But happy to do that too. That'd be fun. I need to get a hold of. I've got a meeting with Dr. Johnson coming up, so we'll talk about doing that in UCRO too. But I'd love to highlight Eurasia and have those conversations. Be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I actually have a podcast recording set up with Dr. Chumbo, Philly Chumbo, on the 23rd. So that's in 2 weeks from today.
Very good.
And it's going to be kind of a candid, unscripted conversation.
That'll be good. Yeah, so, that'll be good.
Yeah. Well, we've come a long ways together from our days in Africa. Regional directors. And he's a good friend. He happens to be my jurisdictional superintendent right now. So, yeah.
That'll be a fun one. Ready. I'll have to listen to it. That'll be on the Everyday Eurasia podcast coming up. Is that right? Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I'll look forward to that. So, well, Dr. Louw, I don't want to keep you too long. Again, these conversational ones, I could just do it all day, but we've got to get you to make sure you get your Sabbath rest in you. So, but wonderful to have you. What can our listeners be praying about for you? Obviously, so much going on in Eurasia, but how can they be praying for you?
Well, right now, I'm actually also the interim field strategy coordinator for the South Asia field. And I've appointed a team to work with me so that as regional director, I don't carry this thing by myself. There are lots of pieces that need to be looked at, evaluated, interventions applied. And in the nation of Bangladesh, for example, we need to recompose the church, how it is. So this is quite a stressful time regarding the South Asia field, especially with it not having an FSC. So that would be my primary prayer request right now, that God would just grant us wisdom and resilience and the resources in terms of people, provisions to do all that needs to be done. That is my primary prayer request that I have. Obviously, the ongoing conflicts, as you mentioned, in the Middle East, in Russia, Ukraine, We have lovely people on both sides in the church that love Jesus, love the Church of the Nazarene, but it is so hard to get to them. It's so hard to be able to assist them, resource them. And that's a primary concern. How do we continue to resource the church when there are sanctions and things that have been opposed against the nation? Yet our disciples of Jesus, our Nazarenes, they need to be served. So these are two massive requests that I have, and I appreciate prayer for them.
Absolutely. Well, that's good, and good to hear that from you. I mean, it's one of those things that, at least in the States, I know that, we're inundated with news, so it's good to hear people that are there directly dealing with that and hear how God's working. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And
go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say, and what I would say is, don't always believe the news, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always like to make a stupid church joke. That's the bad news, and we have the good news, kind of thing. So
yeah, exactly.
We got the gospel.
Exactly. But there is always another narrative.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It takes a lot of discernment.
Amen. I just a fun prediction. So I think it's France Morocco tonight. Now, when this goes up, this will be a week after that game. But who's not going to win that game? You can predict that game specifically. But who do you think is going to win the World Cup overall?
Well, I think France is the champion. I mean, France is well, no, actually, Argentina is defending.
Yeah.
But I think the French do have
a really good team. Yeah.
The best squad to draw from.
Yeah.
And they've been really, really good. They are favorites. And I would see them winning tonight, beating Morocco. My heart pulls for England. I'm an England supporter.
Yeah, I like to cheer. That's who I cheer for too. So Harry Kane is fun to watch. I like watching England play. Yeah. Bellingham and all whatnot. But they're fun to watch.
Bellingham been amazing.
He's been amazing. Yeah, he's been great. Yeah. No, that's who I'm pulling for. Once the States got out, I was cheering for England and the United States. But once the United States, Belgium looked pretty good though. I don't know. They looked pretty darn good. So yeah.
Well, I was really disappointed with the US's performance.
Yeah,
I thought
they just did not play well. So yeah.
No, they did not, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Belgium's got their number, because I think they were the one that knocked them out 8 years ago when they got into past the group stage. Yeah. So they got to get over Belgium, But figure that out.
But Belgium had struggled in their previous games.
Oh yeah. Well, they just got it put together. I hadn't watched them previously, but they looked really on fire against USA. They looked clean and crisp. Their passing and all that. So it's just good. But, yeah.
Good.
Well, sir, thank you for sharing your afternoon with us, and I hope you have a good Sabbath rest weekend. Yeah, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Yeah. We'll get up a new episode soon here. We'll figure our schedules out, but excited to continue this partnership with Eurasia. So
all right, you are more than welcome. It's been a joy chatting with you. Thanks.
Yeah, you as well. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to us and follow us on social media. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon, Audible, and wherever else you may find your podcasts.